Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Indeed, the human being is coming into a new paradigm. And we have said this now for so many years, dear ones. The paradigm is so different. It's actually a spiritual, soul paradigm. It's not just what's happening on the planet. It's not just consciousness. It has to do with the very veil itself, whatever that means to you. That veil that separates you from so many things that you don't understand, but that you think you've figured out, is starting to lift. And what it's revealing is confusing. I want this channel and the next one to have a theme. And I'll call this the elements of the spark. In order for you to truly understand, you'd have to listen to that which I gave last week, which is called the spark. But I'm going to review it just a little bit. And then I'm going to give you some instructions of what takes place in the elements of what goes on with the spark and what happens after the spark. So let's back up. I'm going to ask you to visualize many things. And the reason for that is that you cannot visualize the truth. This truth, the purity, the core, the love of God, the gold standard of truth is God's love. So pure that its purity itself escapes you. You don't know. It's only what you believe from being a human of how pure it can be between a human and a human, or a human and a child. And you judge everything on how much you can love. And you don't scratch the surface on how much love and compassion and beauty and caring God has for you. There is no paradigm on the planet that comes close. And so if I ask you to visualize it, you wouldn't know what to visualize. And so we constantly turn to those things which are stories and paradigm shift examples, sometimes even parables. Can you imagine walking through life, dear ones, with angels at your side? Now, you can paint those angels in your imagination any way you want. You can make them any gender, you can make them as big or small, but they're beautiful. They're sacred and they're quiet. They're quiet because you have free choice. From the moment you get here, you can listen to what you're told. You can look around. You can feel or not. You can examine or not. Go any direction you want to with your own spirituality, with that the way you think. No one can put a cage on you and your thoughts. No one. They can try. But you are free to choose whatever you wish to and what's making sense to you. And in an old energy, dear ones, it's pretty much been what I will call the children's story so far, of what you've been presented because you cannot even fathom the gold, the true paradigm of your soul. You look at your life on earth and immediately you think of suffering, difficulty, survival. And that quite often is all you consider as you and your soul. And when you talk about God's part in that, you'll say, well, that's going to come later if I'm good enough. Or you might say, I believe God loves me, and that's what I think about all day in order to get through the suffering that I have. And that's not even partially true. Imagine angels walking with you. Imagine the splendor of creation walking with you. Not just one. How many angels can you put on the head of a pin? You've heard that. Imagine that there was an entourage that if you could examine it, it had your color. Imagine they were assigned to you. And you walk from place to place, and they're walking with you. Imagine just for a moment the other side of the veil is walking with you. It's the best way I can tell you what a multidimensional God looks like. Because you don't know dimensions. You don't think dimensionally. You just know your existence. You just know what happens next in your schedule. Let's say whatever takes place in your life, these angels are there. And what you don't know, or what no one's really told you, is that they're available if you knew how to ask. I want you to imagine for a moment a human being in a room, and that room is life. And that human being has done the best they can. And in that best they can, this room is filled with objects that are also metaphors. And part of those objects may be their spiritual life, their politics, how they feel about this and that. Imagine them all there as objects, and they're working with them in this room. And they survive in this room the best they can. In this room, which is life, they eat, they love, they have logic, they have intellect, all of those things that go into a human being. Every single one of those things, dear ones, doesn't really much have to do with your soul. You see, that soul never really was part of that room. The soul was always thought about as being somewhere else. And so in that room, they take care of that in an old energy by the objects that are there. Some of these objects are labeled things that people have taught to you. That's an object. In some ways, those objects become actually guards because they're guarding your life. And that's the way you think about it, especially when it comes to those which you've assigned as the way you think, your attitude, your logic, including spirituality. There'll be those who guard you accordingly from doing the wrong thing, you're told. You have spiritual guards. They're guards. You've told that you have the love of God available to you, and you go places and you will worship, and it feels correct, and correct it is for now. And a guard goes with you, you're told. This is all a metaphor. What has that got to do with angels walking with you? Stay tuned. In this room of yours, there's always been a door. It's always there because free choice lets you look around. And you could look at many doors that are in this room, but you're not interested in any of them because you know where the entrance and the exit is and always have, and it's you. It's where you come, where you go, it's how you think, it's what you do, it's how you survive. It's what's going to happen when you die. And then there are all these other doors, but there's one in particular that you haven't paid a whole lot of attention to because it's a golden door. You opened it once. Oh, the guards ran over and shut it quick. They said, don't open that. Because if you open that door, all manner of things could happen. You noticed when you opened it, it was a stairway. There was a light at the top of it. But they said it's dangerous. You see, it's a trick. You don't want to go there. Because they'll capture your soul. They'll make you wear a color suit. They'll make you sit and chant. They'll do all these things. All these things you've heard. Don't do that. It has nothing to do with the love of God, they would say. Stick with the program, they'll say. You see, those guards, part of what they tell you is not to step out of line. Because this loving God who created you, the one that you go and worship, well, there's another side. That loving God will then have a tendency, perhaps, to punish you later if you don't toe the line. And you buy that. And you live that way. What about the angels that are walking with you? Oh, they're there in the room. And they're very quiet. They can't say a thing until you decide to open the door and see for yourself. And so what keeps those from opening the door and seeing for themselves? And the answer normally is either fear or something I've told you before. They're too intelligent to look, and that's what they'll tell you. Too smart to look. Everybody knows what's in that door. Strange people. That's who you're going to meet in that door. Oddness. Funny things. You don't want to go there. Now stick with the logic that has been here for centuries. A God that punishes. And so you do. But not all of you. Old souls in this energy, sometimes that door calls to you at night and says, it doesn't hurt to look, does it? It doesn't hurt to look, does it? Will looking destroy your life? And the answer is no, it won't. In fact, there's a guarantee that says, look all you want to and come back to the room if you don't like it. But that's not what you're told. You're told that if you open the door, it's over. Because other forces that are not understandable in a low energy will grab you and pull you up the stairway, and they'll never see you again. So that becomes fear. Now you're afraid to open the door. And that the old souls, this civilization and this energy, that door calls to them. And it says, look, we're stronger than you think. We can look. And if we don't like it, we're strong. We can come back because we've been here many times. We know this planet. And so when no one's looking, you open the door. And as soon as you open that door, those angels that have your name and your color suddenly all come alive. No matter what age you are, no matter what year of your lifespan you're in, they have been there all along in total and complete quietness, waiting until you gave one thing intent to look. And you open the door, and you see that golden stairway. And you start to walk up it, and then the angels, they start to get bigger. And they start to show you things because you're walking the stairway. And when you get to the top, that's the spark. It's the same spark that you have at your last breath, and we told you that before. At your last breath, dear ones, everything is shown to you. The veil is lifted. And no matter what you believed on earth or any of those things, all of a sudden, truth is there. Core truth is there. And the reaction, oh my. And you recognize your home. And you recognize everything else. You were just a visitor. That's the spark. And a modified portion of that is what you see at the top of the stairway. That's the spark. When you start to see, oh my, it isn't what I was told. I see a God without guards. I see a room without windows or doors because it doesn't have walls. That's the freedom I've always wanted. That's the spark. We never told you what's next. Because the spark occupies so much joy, revelation, understanding. And then there's that little voice inside that says, you know, you can go back down those stairs. Before anybody wakes up, you can go back down, you know. That's when you get out the cement. And cement closed the way to get back, because you know better. Because you realize that everything that was in the old room was a different world, a different paradigm. A different soul, you might even say, a lower energy soul. But now you've been shown. And you can't believe the difference. The purity of God that is so beautiful, that loves you so much. Well, what's next? The spark isn't enough. The spark puts you on a playing field with other old souls on a new energy earth with revelation. The next phase, the next element, and there's many, and I'm going to tell you later today. The next element is realization of freedom. What if nothing you were told actually is true? What if only pieces and parts were true, and suddenly you have the whole picture? The life before was wandering in a room with walls that you understood, and you were safe there. What happens when you're in a room, metaphorically, where there are no walls, no ceiling, and you can go anywhere you want to, metaphorically, with your thoughts, metaphorically? What if you could do almost anything? What if you start to learn some of the principles of metaphysics that say you have healing for yourself if you want to, you can live a longer life if you want to. The things you were told absolutely you have no control over are totally controllable. What do you do with that? I'll tell you, you sit on the floor for a while and you weep in joy. Because it's so big. It's so big. You realize even that what you do for a living, you're not stuck there. You don't have to do that. There are so many avenues, and in some way in the field you can see them in this new light, and you stop fearing your survival. Or what would happen if you didn't have a paycheck? It doesn't matter. Because those angels that always were quiet are now getting really loud. And they're giving you what I'm going to call spiritual intuition. Turn right, turn left, go here, go there. And you're realizing right now, the world is yours at some level. And then the next level, the next stage, the next element. You start to look at everyone around you. And you start to look hard at them. And you realize they're still in their rooms. And they're not going to believe you for a minute if you tell them about the golden stairway. If you did, they'll walk the other way. Some have. Already they see you're different. They don't like it. Their guards are warning them against you. And then you start to have a sensitivity of what it's like when you were there in the room. And all you want to do is hug them and tell them there is another way that's free. It's not another doctrine, dear ones. It's not another system, dear ones. You step into your soul, dear ones, and the truth of the spark of God is yours. The element of realization of freedom is one thing, and then it turns into sensitivity. Some of you have been there, some of you are still there. My advice, do not let the sensitivity for what you know shut you down. It doesn't do you any good to be too sensitive for your own good. It doesn't help you with what is at hand next, the next element, the next phase. Because when you got to the top of that step, of that stairway of gold, you arrived as a warrior of the light. Some of the few where the veil has been lifted. And there's a lot to do. And what isn't to do is to convince your friends. What isn't to do was to give them Kryon books. What isn't to do was to evangelize who you are or what you found. What is to do is to love them so compassionately it will demand someday they turn to you and say, I want what you have. Because I'm not finding it in my room. And then you can gently tell them, look for the doorway. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Some have said the Kryon message is trickery. Or perhaps it's taking you to a place that's nonsense. I'll give you a challenge. If that's what you think, if you're listening to this, why don't you just go there and come back? Are you strong enough? Or do you think that your soul will be captured? Well, in a way, it will be. Love will do that. It's a capturing of your soul with the truth, dear ones. And that's why I'm here. I want to tell you more elements. I will tonight. It goes and it goes. All because of the spark. Which room are you in? And so it is.